First, I need to give some background to be able to properly set the scene. I grew up in a small town in South Africa. The town is up in the mountains, so there's mostly dirt roads, dense bushes, and some forests. Our house was at the quiet edge of town. The road going past our house only leads to another village. It's not that important to the story in particular. An important thing to note is that there are no streetlights in this town. This means that every night time it would be so dark you couldn't even see your hand in front of your eyes. First things first, poverty is everywhere in South Africa. I am sad to say that most of the townspeople were white English people, barring a few families, mine included. We are white and Afrikaans. My father is a DIY and handy type, so of course we had a lot of fairly expensive tools and things. With the town being so isolated, you couldn't get everything you needed without driving about an hour and a half to the closest city. This meant that my family drove out about once a week to do our weekly grocery shopping. When we return, it's usually to a broken-in house. Usually they only stole precious clothes, blankets, pillows, and money. They left the expensive alcohol, which gave the impression that the burglars were young. The parents usually sent in the younger kids, since they could fit through the burglar bars, which we had on every single window, of course. I have many stories about this, but the one I'm focusing on right now happened when I was in 8th grade, about 5 to 6 years ago. My mother, 2 sisters and I had moved to said city to attend school, since my town was too small for one. Some weekends we'd visit my dad, although my parents were going through a divorce. At the time I was quite depressed, never slept at all, and spent all my time reading. I'd recently started a series, and I decided to see how far I could make it before I fell asleep. I had my own room on the other side of the house, the only room without burglar bars. It was only recently converted into a bedroom from my father's library. I felt vulnerable, so my main light was off, and I was reading with only a small lamp. My window faced the road, and there was a second gate about 100 meters away that we never used. We had a gorgeous, albeit racist, black Labrador, Bagheera. She'd sleep outside, but outside my window, of course. She was a loving puppy, and only turned aggressive whenever someone or something that didn't belong, like a burglar, was on our property. Here I am reading. I've reached the 4th book, and it was around 4 a.m. I'm getting to a good part, when sweet old Bagheera lets out a quiet warning boof. Paranoid and more than a little scared, I immediately switched off the light and was plunged into darkness. Everything was quiet, and there was no wind that night. After a few moments, Bagheera settled down, until I heard the gate being opened slowly. I'll never forget the squeaking sound, as it was slowly being pushed open. Bagheera sprinted off to the intruder, while I hid under my blanket. She chased him around for a bit, but soon ran into the street. I lifted my head up a bit, as I heard the leaves outside my room rustling. My heart was pounding, and I was deathly afraid. Suddenly my decision to claim the bedroom, so far from the rest of the family, seemed stupid and immature. "Bagheera, Baba," I called, softly. In response, someone shone a torch through my window. We both froze for a second, until Bagheera came bounding back. She was a barking, growling warrior, and I could hear more than one person scuffling away. I ran out of my room and into my father's room. I woke him up and told him to look outside, please. Grumbling, he did as I asked. Bagheera immediately came inside the house and patrolled with him. My dad later said that he heard people but saw nothing, so he let 3 warning shots into the air to warn them to stay away. Ever since that night, I've been afraid to sleep without burglar bars and curtains or blinds. I plan to get a gun for self-defense as soon as I am qualified to. I'm not sure if this is better suited for creepy encounters. So to the would-be intruder, let's not meet.